the bottom line, because Stone Cold sits in.
I have a lot of things I want to get off my chest.
This is The Pencil, a professional wrestling podcast starring Renny D and friends. Thanks for listening to The Pencil. Subscribe to the show on iTunes and follow us on Twitter at Pencil Podcast.
If you smell what the rock is cooking. You gotta be kidding me! What? No way! What? I got goosebumps! The Rock is here! The Rock! The Bravo Boys in Brooklyn! Oh my God! This is awesome! Listen to this place! This is incredible! The most electrifying man in sports entertainment, I can guarantee you. That man right there will defend America! And it sounds like Brooklyn can smell what the Rock is.
What an unfucking believable night last night on Monday Night Raw for a couple different reasons, but one main big reason was the music that you just heard, The Rock, returning to Monday Night Raw last night. I had no idea at all that he was coming on the show last night.
Not on board with it either. I feel like I read enough dirt sheets. I read enough internet articles. I feel like I know who's going to be there. I know the pulse of who's going to be at most of the shows, most of the live shows for certain. And no, it caught me off guard as well. It was a great moment. That's what WWE does for us.
It doesn't do it for us all the time, though. Like last night, I was staring at Lana like any normal 28-year-old man would do, or 27-year-old man, whatever the hell I am, staring at her because she is exactly what Rocky Maivia said she was. She is smoking. And I was looking at her, and I was looking at how big Rusev was, and I had no idea, absolutely no idea The Rock's music was going to hit. And before we get into actually what he said, how good does The Rock look for being 40-plus years old? How fucking good does he look?
His shoulders and his arms just look fantastic. He looked better than he did 10 years ago because he gets blown up for these movies. I don't know if he's in better actual wrestling shape. I think that's pretty obvious that that's a no. But for being on the cover of magazines and being in movies and doing what he needs to do, he looks about as best as good as he possibly could.
I mean, I was shocked. I felt like a little kid again. I was marking out. Honestly, up to that point, Monday Night Raw had been pretty lackluster in my eyes. And all of a sudden, that hit, and it changed the entire atmosphere around in that building. And I guess
I wouldn't have wanted to be the Divas match that got to follow that.
No, I mean, because before, if you remember right, before the Rock and Rusev segment, it was the midget segment. It had Hornswoggle and El Torito doing their little whatever, and the crowd during that match was just frustrated because we've already had guest people come out from the Today Show that nobody gave two shits about. Then they had the Hornswoggle El Torito thing. If you remember right, the crowd started chanting, "This is stupid," and then transcended into a Derek Jeter chant, which I actually thought was hilarious, especially once you put the stuff in the ring that's just garbage and just terrible. And then they told, no matter how bad, the show could be the worst fucking thing ever made. And last night's show was pretty bad at times. You put Rocky Maivia on a 3-hour Monday Night Raw, and everybody's eyes were glued to the screen, and their asses were glued to the seat. And the WWE, they don't make characters. They don't have anybody. And I would even argue that John Cena isn't like this. They don't have anybody as good as The Rock is.
No argument. They don't have anybody on the roster that's as good as The Rock. But I will argue that if John Cena was around once every 10 months, we'd have the same reaction when his music hit as what we hear out of The Rock. I think the fact that he's not around gives him that. Cena is not The Rock on the mic all the time, but we've talked about on this show how great he can be. And I think the only person you could argue is John Cena in that realm of the conversation of how great The Rock is when it comes down to all aspects of being in the ring. But if John Cena's music didn't hit 3 times a week on TV like it does, I think it'd be a lot different for him.
I totally agree. I mean, obviously, The Rock has been gone for a long time, wrestled a couple different matches. I mean, he was at WrestleMania when we were there. But I think I guess the surprise factor to me is what really got me because, like you said, we read the dirt sheets. It's our job now that we come at you every Tuesday with this podcast that we need to be up to date with what they're reporting and what they're saying. And I don't recall. I didn't even know The Rock was in New York City for shooting movie stuff or doing whatever he was doing, presses or whatever. I had no idea.
It doesn't happen. This does not happen in October. This does not happen in October. This happens. Like, this is stuff that we try to get lucky to have happen during WrestleMania season, and they just pulled it out of nowhere and pulled it out of their hat in the middle of what many consider to be the downtime of the year for the WWE. It was as shocking as could have been for having anybody's music hit. That's about as shocking as it could have been.
Do you think that Rocky Maivia will be back on TV before WrestleMania 31?
No, I don't think so. If you would ask me yesterday at this time, I would have told you the same answer. I don't think he would have been on TV before 31. And I would have probably guessed, if I had to, that the first time he would have been on TV would have been the Monday Night Raw following WrestleMania next year. And I still think, at this point, even with what happened last night, I still think that's the most likely thing, is that he would be in the realm of the first Monday Night Raw after WrestleMania or SummerSlam of next year would be my best bet. But, I mean, if they showed us anything last night, is our best bet might not be even close to the truth.
Right, exactly. But I think if they show us anything last night, it's that you and I actually know what the fuck we're talking about when it comes to booking Hell in a Cell. We both agreed that we didn't think Brock Lesnar was going to be at Hell in a Cell and defending the World Heavyweight Championship title. Last night, the WWE did all but confirm that when they booked John Cena versus Dean Ambrose. The winner of that match gets Seth Rollins in a steel cage. You and I both said that John Cena was going to wrestle Dean Ambrose at some point. And I think you actually maybe picked Hell in a Cell. And I can't remember if we both maybe picked Hell in a Cell and the payoff was Seth Rollins, Dean Ambrose at Survivor Series, or what it actually was. But
that's what I thought. I thought it was going to be some sort of tag team main event with Rollins. I thought the Ambrose-Cena feud would start at Hell in a Cell in a tag team match in which they were on each other's team, and then it would go into the following pay-per-view. But they spread it up a couple weeks on me, but I'm not surprised with where they're going.
It should be interesting. I mean, I guess it kind of took me for a little bit of a loop. I wasn't really expecting that announcement. I thought maybe they potentially would wrestle next week. But I mean, obviously, you don't want to waste that match on Raw. But moving forward, how good is that match between John Cena and Dean Ambrose going to be at Hell in a Cell, and who actually wins that match and faces Seth Rollins later that night?
I wanted to ask you that. That was one of my top things I wanted to get to tonight was, do you think at this point they've done a better job with making it for building to a Dean Ambrose payoff for being the face kind of guy, or do you think they've built it better to the point of making Ambrose Cena kind of feel like the entree, and then have Rollins' payoff be the main course?
You know, I'm not entirely sure. I guess what I'm looking at.
I don't think it makes sense to have Cena win that first match, does it?
I don't think it makes sense to have Cena win the first match, but right now they haven't told us what type of match it's going to be. So if it's just a normal straight up match, the finish could be your favorite, and that could be a double count out or a disqualification or something where they both there's no winner, and there could potentially be a triple threat match inside that Hell in a Cell with Seth Rollins. Do I think that's going to happen? No, I don't think that's going to happen. I do think John Cena does actually beat Dean Ambrose to face Seth Rollins later that night, so we still have the Seth Rollins-Dean Ambrose payoff at Survivor Series because they've been building that damn match for so long. You know, but if Cena doesn't win, then where does that leave John Cena? So I wish we had Paul Heyman last night to figure out if there was going to be any sort of Brock Lesnar, anything at Hell in a Cell, because if it is John Cena, Seth Rollins, when does Lesnar get his retribution on Seth Rollins? When does Lesnar come in and show John Cena that it wasn't a fluke, that he beat him the first time at SummerSlam, that he wasn't going to beat him at the last pay-per-view, the Night of Champions pay-per-view? I guess, does Brock Lesnar show up at all at Hell in a Cell? I would say no, from my standpoint, because if he's going to show up, why not use one of his dates in a title match? So how do you think Hell in a Cell plays out from your standpoint right now moving forward?
I think Ambrose loses to Cena in a great match to open the show that will probably be very similar to what you and I were in attendance for with Triple H and Daniel Bryan at WrestleMania.
Right.
I think they're trying to recreate a little bit something like that, which that was an unbelievable match, and it led to the ultimate payoff for Daniel Bryan. I think they're trying to build Ambrose to the point where something like that could happen, but I don't think he's there yet. And I think Cena will win in a clean finish against Ambrose in a situation where it'll end up Rollins gets the payoff with a victory over Cena inside Hell in a Cell in the main event. Rollins leaves with the briefcase probably bloodied. For all I know, it might be a situation where Cena loses the match, but he's the one that walks out, that kind of thing, making him look obviously strong. Rollins is laying in the middle of the ring, but he was the one to win the match. And then we come into Monday Night Raw with the ultimate payoff, attempting to have a payoff for both Ambrose and Rollins, because I think that's the match we all want to see. Whereas you don't have a hurt Rollins because he did get a victory over Cena, and then Cena can put over Ambrose by shaking his hand and telling him he was the real champion of last night, whatever it might be. But I would say Cena in the opener, Rollins in the main event.
Okay, I can see that as being the opening match. I would agree with that as well. I can see Rollins going over, especially if they're going to build him to potentially challenge Lesnar at all in the future. I think it makes sense for him to go over on John Cena. But I guess we'll get more clarification moving forward. And last night's Raw, outside of The Rock, he was obviously the biggest bright spot of the show to me. Seeing Edge and Christian was kind of cool, even though they were just plugging their after show on WWE Network. It was still cool to see them together. But a big bright spot also, Dean Ambrose, him leaving, doing the Coney Island gimmick, coming back with the hot dog stuff. I mean, honestly, God, I would not want to be the guy getting doused with ketchup and mustard the way Kane and Randy Orton got doused. That shit was disgusting, and I would not want that on me.
How far have those two fallen? They are former champions, and they're just they're taking bumps from ketchup and mustard bottles now.
Yeah, I mean, if I'm Randy Orton, I'm looking myself in the mirror every single fucking day. I wake up and say, "You are the best in the goddamn world, and you are getting doused with ketchup and mustard, and you don't even have a match right now at Hell in a Cell." So what happens with Randy Orton moving forward? That's my question every single week on this show, because they're not utilizing the best talent in that locker room the way they should be, and it's frustrating to me.
Every week is the reason that your question every week is because they do the exact same thing and there's never an answer.
Never an answer. Not all I want is one fucking answer. Give me an answer. Is Randy Orton going to get any sort of spotlight moving forward in the next 6 months? Are they going to keep shitting on him? And it irritates me because I know, and everybody else knows, that Randy Orton is the absolute best wrestler they have in that company. John Cena might draw the most money because the kids like to buy his shit, but Randy Orton is the best wrestler in that company. He needs something. I don't give a shit if it's the IC title, the US title, whatever. Give him something. Please, God, please. Give Randy Orton something moving forward, especially into the Royal Rumble, and they're just not giving him any bone right now to fetch, and it's irritating on my standpoint. It's I'm going to keep getting pissed. It's flabbergasted, Dirt. Flabbergasted. I'm going to move up. All right. Okay, we're going to move past Randy Orton. We want to get in as much talk about Raw as we can before we bring in tonight's guest, who is none other than Craven Knyte, but we'll get to him in a little bit. We still have stuff to talk about from last night's Monday Night Raw. Question for you. Outside of The Rock and outside of Dean Ambrose, what was your bright spot of last night's Monday Night Raw?
Damien Sandow.
Yeah, I knew you were going to say Damien. And the thing is, the crowd in Brooklyn loved Damien Sandow last night, because I think everybody is understanding and seeing that the stuff that he's been through the last 6 months, it's finally starting to pay off, and he plays that character better than anybody in that roster could. And it was great. It was great.
Everybody that's watching the shows, everybody I've talked to people, close friends of ours, Ryan, that laughed whenever they didn't notice what he was doing 3 or 4 weeks ago until they listened to our podcast and understood, hey, I'm going to notice this now, and it is really funny. I'm getting emails at work, I get texts at work saying, hey, thanks for pointing out Damien Sandow being an idiot at ringside, because it's hilarious. And I think everybody in the crowd last night in Brooklyn saw exactly what we've been talking about for 5 weeks. And the guy is absolutely stealing the show. And The Miz is doing very good work right now. And Damien Sandow is stealing the show from him even. And it's entertaining every week. and it's not getting old yet, so I think they'll just run with it as long as they can.
It's only going to get better because then now the WWE realizes that the audience is realizing that Damien Sandow is an important piece of this puzzle. The backstage interview with Kane, The Miz, and Damien Sandow, when Sandow walked away, stopped, came back, and took the fruit basket, just that little thing popped the shit out of the crowd, and I even laughed a little bit. I thought it was funny. And it's going to be awesome because we know it's pretty much lock at this point that it's going to be The Miz versus Sheamus at Hell in a Cell. You and I both predicted this weeks ago, and it's going to be Cesaro versus Dolph Ziggler. All these matches so far that they have, at least that we think that they're going to have, are going to be fantastic, in my opinion. I think, from Damien Sandow, my bright spot last night was Cesaro again, and I was actually torn between Cesaro and Tyson Kidd, because Tyson Kidd really impressed me last night again, too, and I think that he gets more airtime. He'll be a name to really put into that mid-card picture as well, but I think Antonio Cesaro is one little angle or one big angle away from being a main event superstar on that roster. He's so good, and he's very entertaining. The crowd likes him, and right now he's getting a shot at the IC title, hopefully at Hell in a Cell. I guess the mid-card right now hasn't been stronger, and I think we hit on this last week and the week before, but with the absence of Brock Lesnar, we were really getting some focus on the mid-card titles, and it's awesome. And they're great people to focus on. Sheamus is decent. The Miz and Sandow are fantastic. Dolph Ziggler, your boy Dolph, is always great. And Cesaro is just fantastic as well. I guess, did you suspect 3 months ago that the mid-card titles, the IC and the US title, 3 months later would be this important to the show? Because they're arguably the most important thing to the show at this point.
Yes, I mean, I didn't see it coming, but I hoped that it would come, and they've done a very good job. And I will say that one thing that tends to get a little old for me is the same six-man tag match 2 or 3 times in like a 3-week span. But if they're doing it for the reason of making guys like Sheamus, making guys like The Miz and Cesaro, whoever it might be, look strong and not have to take a lot of clean finished losses in order to elevate them in the coming months into that Rollins, Ambrose, Cena, Lesnar era that there is right now, I'm okay with them doing those matches in order to continue to make those guys look strong. Because like you said, of those mid-card guys, I think Sheamus and Cesaro are the most likely guys that could get into that main event scene. And if that's the case, I mean, I couldn't imagine how entertaining it would be to see, God forbid, Cesaro in the ring with Lesnar, because we know how strong Lesnar is, and we've seen how freaky strong Cesaro is, and it would be too funny to watch Cesaro get his hands on Lesnar and pick him up the way that he's been picking up Big Show or picking up Mark Henry in the last couple of weeks. So, I mean, that's something that is kind of a pipe dream at this point that I hope I get to see.
Yeah, it's fantastic. I'm a huge fan. I'm excited about, and I think I say this every week now, of what they're doing. It's just entertaining because who's ever writing the Sandow stuff and giving Cesaro a chance, it locks me to the TV because it is good wrestling. It is good entertainment. To me, it beats so much than bringing these guest stars in, and it just, I'm not going to give that any more time of day because it was so frustrating for me, and the crowd obviously didn't like it. Sure, they get the publicity on the Today Show and all that kind of stuff, and I get it. I get the importance of it. I'm a business guy myself, but Christ almighty, it is tough to watch. The Mark Henry-Bo Dallas match from last night, and I just want to touch on this briefly. The finish to that match is how I thought their first match should have finished, because I don't think Bo Dallas beating Mark Henry clean did favors for anybody at all, and besides making Bo Dallas look like just an absolute stud. Last night's finish was believable, and I guess, do you have any comments on that match? It wasn't a great match, but I think it served its point. They're going to wrestle each other at the Hell in a Cell pay-per-view, or at least the pre-show, one would think. I think that obviously, if they keep going to having rematches on Raw all the time, it's going to be pointless, but I think this should be their last match moving forward, that they should have a pre-show match before Hell in a Cell. Do you have any thoughts whatsoever at all on that portion of the show?
No, I thought the same thing whenever it happened. I thought that it might have been a backtracking situation from creative and thinking, hey, this is what we should have done last week, but this shit probably isn't even memorable enough for people that aren't like you and I would even remember that happened last week. So, hey, we'll just do the count out one this week, and hopefully nobody remembers what Mark Henry's been doing the last 4 months, because we've fucked it all up.
Yeah, I agree, 100%. 100%. Well, there's two more titles that appeared last night on Monday Night Raw that I want to touch base on. Well, this is a question we had from Twitter as well. Some guy wanted us to know, what's the future of AJ and Paige? What's the future of the Divas title moving forward? To be honest with you, it started out pretty good, but now at this point, I don't give a shit about it. And that's truth. I think AJ Lee and Paige together in the ring are good enough. Nikki Bella in that triple threat match was great, but now we're involving Alicia Fox, who I actually like Alicia Fox. I think she's good. And I thought when she was doing those temper tantrums a couple months ago, that was fantastic TV for the women's division. Emma, I don't get the gimmick. She's a good wrestler. I know she is. And when she's not stealing from Walmart, she's pretty good in the wrestling ring. But I didn't understand having Emma in it. I just don't understand where they're booking it. And to me, it doesn't matter to me. And I just don't care about the women's title at this point. Again, they went from me caring about it at one pay-per-view to totally me reverting my thought process in 2 weeks.
Yeah, that's exactly what they did. In 2 weeks, well, I don't know who they're wanting the crowd to cheer for. I guess they just need to give us some sort of direction as to, are we supposed to like AJ? Are we supposed to like Paige? Not that whatever they tell us is what exactly we're going to do, but at least then we'll know who the good and the bad is supposed to be in this situation. I mean, what exactly has Emma done wrong in the last 7 weeks that she hasn't been seen on TV to have AJ jump off the apron and walk out on a tag team match after not getting tagged quickly enough or whatever her excuse was? I mean, it seemed jumbled and it seemed very rushed. And unless they're going to go somewhere with that part of the story, I don't know how they would influx Emma into that storyline. But otherwise, it just seems like a waste of why. I guess is the best word I can bring out for why. Why are they doing whatever they're doing with the Divas? If they have an explanation, I'll listen. But if they don't, I'm gonna continue to utilize my DVR every time it comes on.
I agree. I absolutely agree again. And speaking of tag team wrestling, last night it became pretty evident again that the Usos are going to be challenging for the WWE tag team titles at Hell in a Cell. I don't really have a whole lot of thoughts on this here because I'm burnt out on the tag team division. We talked about it on Friday's show, our special edition show on Friday. I'm not a fan of the Usos at this point anymore moving forward. They're good wrestlers. I get it. Their character, and as a pro wrestler, I would never buy a ticket to see them on the show. And that's the truth. And I don't feel bad saying that. At this point, I wouldn't even buy a ticket to see Goldust and Stardust anymore. And at one point, 6 months ago, I would have bought a ticket to see Goldust because he was working his ass off. But at this point, that match right there, that doesn't sell me on $9.99 a month at all. Not one bit. And I don't care.
Not to mention, I can't imagine any circumstance in which the Usos are winning those belts back in 2 weeks.
How would they do it? How would they do it unless they fast track the breakup of the Dust Brothers, which you and I both, after talking about it, think that payoff match happens at WrestleMania. So they keep the straps until at least TLC, and the Usos moving forward are just kind of swimming in that tag team pond, which is not very deep, and there's not many people in it. But the WWE doesn't know what they're doing.
There's not plenty of fish in there. There is not plenty of fish in there.
The WWE just does not know how to book their tag team division. They're forgetting how to book their female division. The strongest part on the show is the IC and the US title. Those people should get a raise. The people that are responsible for the Divas and the tag team title should really be reevaluated. Or if that's what Triple H and Vince and those guys want, then I guess maybe they should take a look in the mirror because it's pretty awful stuff. Eric Rowan had his vignette last night, so we've seen the Luke Harper being set free. Eric Rowan's vignette last night. The first time we actually got to hear him say a few words besides run. And, I'm trying not to be biased in this situation because he's a friend, but I actually was impressed with the video package that the WWE did. And they generally do good video stuff for people, whether it be pumping up the heavyweight championship match with Lesnar, Cena when they did that. When the Wyatts were first coming into the WWE, and now with the Wyatts going off on their own, I'm very happy with Luke Harper's stuff, and I was actually very happy with Eric Rowan's stuff. What do you think?
I'm very excited. If it wasn't Damian Sandow for my answer earlier on favorite thing about last night's show, it would have been that vignette on Eric Rowan. The reason being, I think both of us are in the same boat in thinking that this is not what they should be doing, breaking them up. I think having them, with as bad as the tag team division is, having those two monsters as a tag team just makes too much sense, and I don't know why they're doing it now. But I am willing to give it time, and if they have something planned for them in the coming 3 to 4 months that's going to make them singles competitors that are very compelling and as compelling as those vignettes are, then I'll save my judgment until then. But I mean, I think I can't figure out where they're going to go in the singles program.
Yeah,
I don't see where they fit. I don't see where they fit right now, and I think they fit so much better in the tag team program. But somebody that's getting paid more than me is having the ideas, so hopefully they know what the hell they're doing.
Yeah, I'm 100% on board with you, because we were just spent, 20 minutes, or not 20 minutes, but 15 minutes talking about the mid-card titles and the people all involved in that title. Now you're going to add 2 more, because they're better than, there's no European title, there's no hardcore title anymore, and there's not going to be. So now you're putting 2 more people who have vignettes, who have been over at WrestleMania, who people absolutely love the gimmick. Now they're going to be off in a singles competition, unless the payoff eventually comes around where those 2 wrestle each other, which I think you and I both talked about this. That's kind of what we've expected as far as either Luke Harper or Eric Rowan challenging Bray Wyatt down the road as the teacher takes on the student. I don't know what they're going to do with them either, so it'll be interesting to see what they're going to do, but it would have made a lot more sense to have Bray Wyatt be the singles guy moving forward still, and keeping Luke Harper, Eric Rowan as the tag team moving forward. It's going to be, when we were down in Chicago this weekend, and let me tell you something, nobody had more fun in Chicago than the 2 of us. That's a fact. But we didn't make the squared circle, which is very disappointing to us, but I'm sure we'll get another opportunity to go there. But the whole time we kept talking about, outside of getting another drink from the bar and talking to Seamus, the bartender, which is legit, the bartender's name was Seamus, and he was Irish. We kept talking about how excited we were for Monday Night Raw. The takeaway from Raw is, were you satisfied with the show or were you not? I actually am very satisfied with the show because of the bright spots: The Rock, Dean Ambrose, Damian Sandow, and Cesaro. To me, when I think about the 3-hour Raw last night, the first thing that comes to mind is Rocky Maivia, which it's a bright spot. I don't think of the awful guest commentators or the guest stars that were there. So to me, it was a success. I wouldn't give it like an A+, but anytime The Rock is involved, it's awesome to me. So I'm not mad about the Raw last night. I'm actually pretty happy with it.
I believe it would have been in the average category had it not been for Ambrose leaving Cena laying at the end. I think that was a great move. I think the longer that they put him over as Cena's equal is going to be only good for the product. And it's when he dropped him with the DDT at the end, whenever the match was announced, that just felt like the correct ending. And I feel like there's too many times where it ends a way that we don't want it to end, with either a dirty finish or a stare down in the ring, or the wrong guy leaves, or this, that, or the other thing happens that leaves you wanting more. What I wanted was Ambrose to grab Cena, spin him around, and put him on the mat. And that's what he threatened to do, and that's exactly what he did. And I think that was the correct ending, and that pushed it to a satisfying Raw for me. The Rock was great. It was exciting. Ambrose's situation was good. There was a couple other bright spots, and I can forget about the crap with as much good as there was. So I was satisfied.
Absolutely. And John Cena, he's going to get his retribution probably next week on Raw. My guess would be he leaves Dean Ambrose laying either next week or the week after. You have to give him something moving forward in the Hell in a Cell. It's going to be interesting. And just a reminder for you guys, our next week episode, again, is our special October 14th episode. The WWE did a great job last night with the breast cancer awareness situation. The crowd was actually very classy, which I'm proud of. Next week, let's try to do the same thing. For every listener, we're going to donate 10 cents to the Susan G. Komen Foundation to support breast cancer research. Share with your friends and family. But right now, we're going to take a quick little break, and after the break, we're going to come back with independent wrestling superstar Craven Knyte. Based out of Minnesota, I spent some time in the ring with him. I actually spent some time at our WWE tryout together. Good kid, good person, great worker. Has been working for the WWE now for a couple of times, and he actually was just recently down in Orlando for a WWE trial at the Performance Center. We're going to dive into his transition from the Bronx, New York City, to Minnesota, his tryout in the WWE, and his workout regimes, because the kid's stacked up, built, and I guess what the future is for Craven Knyte. So hold on tight. We will be right back here on The Pencil. Again, listen to us every Tuesday on iTunes, PodBean, Stitcher, and YouTube. Or did I say that already? I don't know. Well, you just go to our website, pencilpodcast.com, and find out everything on there. We'll be right back after this.
Hey, this is Chris with Spot Monkey Media. Are you a professional wrestler, a promoter, a business owner? Spot Monkey Media offers creative media solutions for your brand or business. Whether it's merchandise design or promotional material for your next event, Spot Monkey Media will work hands-on to bring your ideas to life. Spot Monkey Media. Create your legacy. Get a free high five when you mention this podcast. Connect with us on Twitter at Spot Monkey Media.
On October 14th, the pencil officially goes pink in honor of Breast Cancer Awareness Month. For every listen to our October 14th podcast between the 14th and the 21st, we will donate 10 cents per listen up to $500. Do us a favor and make sure that you listen to the podcast, share with your friends and family, and let's reach 5,000 listeners so we can donate $500 to breast cancer research. With your help, together, we can pin breast cancer to the mat for the 3 count. Make sure you listen to the podcast on iTunes, YouTube, PodBean, or Stitcher. Follow us at Twitter at Pencil Podcast, or visit our website at www.pencilpodcast.com. You've been listening to another great episode of The Pencil, a professional wrestling podcast coming straight at you every Tuesday on iTunes, PodBean, Stitcher, and YouTube. But hang around, we got a lot more to come, because up next is the guest of the evening. We dive right into the world of professional wrestling, asking all the questions that you want answers to. Up next. We are back here on The Pencil, and like I mentioned on Friday's show, and I mentioned earlier tonight, the special guest that we have is somebody actually I'm pretty close to in the professional wrestling business, a guy I got a chance to share the ring with several times, one of the best workers you will find, not in just Minnesota independent wrestling, but independent wrestling across all 50 states. A man who needs really no introduction. Craven, thank you so much for joining us on the show. How's it going, my man?
Oh, it's going great. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, absolutely, man. And there's a lot of things we want to get to tonight in the time that we have. But the song that we heard coming in, it's a theme song from Power Rangers, and I know that you're a big Dragon Ball Z guy, you're a big Power Rangers guy. When did your infatuation with those shows come about? Was it something that occurred when you were a young kid, or is it something that you kind of picked up as growing older in life?
Oh, it's definitely something as I was a kid. Like, pretty much the first thing I ever got into as a little boy was Power Rangers, Ninja Turtles. Dragon Ball Z didn't come until like my mid-teens and stuff. My older cousin got me into that. But yeah, nowadays, like I try so hard to hang on to my youth. Like I'm just one of those guys that I'm really into the stuff I was into as a kid, and it just never goes away. So Power Rangers and Dragon Ball Z, Batman, and Ninja Turtles are still close to me and still in my heart.
Right, and what a lot of people listening to the show might not know is if you're in professional wrestling, and I actually was, I guess I was the outlier, I was the different person in pro wrestling, because most of the pro wrestlers are really big into comics, really big into stuff like Comic-Con and Wizard World and video games. I played video games quite a bit, but I never got into comics, and I didn't really get into the anime very much, but I mean, you could agree with this. A lot of the guys in the locker room are really big into that, and I think that plays a lot into the fact that we're pro wrestlers. We are, obviously a character of ourselves out there, but we get a chance to live outside of ourselves a little bit, very similar to the comic books and things like that. So I guess with that, when did you know you wanted to be an actual professional wrestler?
When I knew was, I think when I met my best friend, Blade Michaels, who I brought out to Minnesota to do a couple of shows with. And I pretty much got into wrestling together and learned together when I was like a teenager. But we met like back in 6th grade when just messing around with him in the parks and then doing some of the backyard stuff as a little kid. Like that's like just having the fun doing that is when I knew I enjoyed entertaining people. Like just wrestling in the middle of a park in New York. I was born and raised in Bronx, New York. Doesn't sound like it, but I was just never easily influenced to let accents kind of take over me. But yeah, like my friends and I would just wrestle in the parks all the time. We would wrestle in the backyard, and we just loved the idea of just people watching us and being entertained by whatever stupid crap that we were doing in the middle of the park and stuff. So, and people always had fun watching us, and we always had fun doing it, just emulating our favorite wrestlers. Like, I was always Stone Cold Steve Austin, and other guys, like, when I was in 6th grade, guys were, like, different characters in WCW and WWF at the time, and it was, just messing around at those times. I just knew entertaining was just something I really wanted to be a part of.
How old were you at this point, Craven, when this all kind of set in and you're just like, yeah, this is exactly what I want to do with my life?
I have to say when I was around, I'll say 13, 14 years old. And true honesty, maybe not a lot of people know about me. Like, anyone who's really sat down and had a conversation with me actually know that my first in-ring match is when I was 14 years old. Wow. And I started, when I mess around doing, I don't really count my years in the business of when I was when I was a teenager and stuff and messing around doing the backyard stuff. I don't count that, but I did learn the basics, like in-ring stuff, like how to bump and how to hit the ropes and just a little bit of how to put a match together. I learned all that when I was 14 years old. And I kind of transitioned all that stuff into some of the backyard crap that I was doing, even wrestling and boxing rings back then. And so I was really 14 years old when I knew for sure that wrestling was what I wanted to do for the rest of my life.
Those are exciting stories for us to hear, Craven, especially for myself. I mean, I've been to matches where you and Ryan have wrestled here in Minnesota in the last couple of years. I was at the SmackDown where we got to see you wrestle on Superstars against Khali, correct?
It wasn't on Superstars. It was just a dark match. It was me and Ari Davari fighting against the great Khali.
Yep, I was there for that, and you hear something from you saying that you started at 13. Is there a time whenever you have stuff happen now where you look at it and you think, how did I get to wrestle inside the Target Center against the big Khali, or any bigger match that you might have done in the last 2 years, whenever you've started to get to the point where you are now? Is there a time when you can just look and take a deep breath and think, even if this ends tomorrow, this is pretty cool?
For me, I'm a little bit different. I'm always striving to go as far as I can. So a lot of people would say that okay, I got to actually walk inside the WWE ring, or I got to be an extra, or I got to be a rosebud, or whatever the case, and say that if I die tomorrow, then I died a happy man. I got to do everything I wanted to do. Me, I can't say that being a rosebud was the highlight of my wrestling career. I feel like if I died tomorrow, I haven't gotten a chance to really prove to the world that I really love this business and that I devoted myself to it. I want to be able to give as much of myself to wrestling as I can, and I want anyone that's a wrestling fan to really see what I can do and what I can do with anyone else. But to answer your question initially, that when the first time I ever got to be in the Target Center as an extra, mainly, and extra opportunities are way different than actual tryouts from what people really understand. But being there for the first time as an extra and really taking it in, holy shit, I'm in the middle of the Target Center. I've gradually worked myself up from being way higher in the stands to going lower and lower to being front row to finally being in the middle of the ring, in the middle of the Target Center. I just took a deep breath and I'm like, holy shit, I've come closer and closer, but my whole mindset is that I still want to keep moving forward. I don't want to stop. I just want to keep moving forward. So my goal is still to try and be able to show the world exactly what I can do.
Right on.
Yeah, and I think even with me being backstage at that show when that happened, was I jealous? Absolutely, yeah. I was jealous. But if there were two men that deserved it, you and Arya obviously deserved it more than anybody that I know. And I think being in that situation, with me being in the back, I wanted to be there. Now, I can imagine if I were you and I had that match, and after that match, all I could think about is, I want that more. I want that times 20. I want that times 50. I need to have this. And knowing you the way I do, that's exactly the way you took it. You walked away from it. Obviously, You were very happy with it. You're happy you got your first dark match. But I saw that look in your eyes. You're just yeah, it was cool. I mean, whatever, you can tell your friends about it, but until I'm on TV every Monday or until I get a contract, whether it even be with TNA or whatever, you're still not to where you want to be yet, and you keep putting the work in, and I think that's just part of maybe, I don't know if that's a mindset maybe that was instilled in you as a kid growing up or what it was, but you have one of the hardest work ethics that I've ever witnessed in pro wrestling, like, which we're going to get to also, a little bit later about how you carry yourself outside the ring, because I'm very impressed with you as a person, not just as a wrestler, but as a person. You remind me a lot of myself, kind of like how we carry ourselves outside the ring. And you mentioned earlier you did the backyard thing. I did the backyard thing. And when I first got into the business, that was one thing you didn't talk to anybody about, apparently. You never told anybody you did. And it's changed so much in 10 years. When I first broke in, and same with you, because we broke in about the same time at the same age, you didn't mention that you were a backyarder because the vets would really, and this is the time where the veterans in the business were dicks. I mean, they were real big assholes. And they still are. These are the same people who are bitter today that if they're still laying around the locker room, they're the same way they were 10 years ago. And it's sad, but that's a story for a different day. You were stone cold. I was actually, we would make a play on names as well. We'd be Kurt Angle or Steve Whiteman instead of Steve Blackman. We'd tape it, and we thought we were so awesome. When did you, you were in the Bronx. When did you move to Minnesota? And is that when you first, I guess, formally got trained to be a pro wrestler?
So the story behind me moving from New York to Minnesota, that was the decision on my mother's part.
Okay.
And she pretty much she wanted to move so like something that would be better for me for school, which totally it was. Like I went to pretty much one of the worst schools in the Bronx, and I was pretty much a borderline dropout. And I was pretty much on the edge of just like, just saying, screw it. Like, I don't want anything to do with school anymore. Cause I was like cutting classes all the time.
Sure.
And my mom knew that moving to Minnesota, we had family out here. I had cousins that I never really officially met before. I had an uncle and aunt that I was able to stay with. And pretty much just right out of the blue, we decided to visit for Thanksgiving, like over almost 12 years ago. And we stayed here, we stayed at my aunt and uncle's, and my mom was like, do you want to stay here? Like, start school, the trimester starts right after Thanksgiving. I was like, holy shit, sure.
Right.
Like, I was thinking, like, okay, what would be better for me? What would be better for school? Even at, like, 16 years old, I was trying to think what would be better for me. Like, but at the time, I was training. Like, I was going to, a place that had a wrestling ring. That was a wrestling gym, and I was training with my best friends and doing all that. And I was like, crap, I'm leaving this. I'm leaving this opportunity to do some more wrestling and come to Minnesota. But then again, coming to Minnesota and staying in Minnesota for school was the best decision for me, and being able to graduate, go through my years, like couple years, like just kind of like putting wrestling on the wayside is probably the best idea for me, because like, trying to start a wrestling career at 16 years old is not really ideal. Like, some guys have done it, but like for me, like I really didn't know where to start out here.
Right.
But trying to make the story a little bit shorter, when after the 2 years went by, dealing with high school and getting done with all that, I was still kind of like, there was still a void I was trying to fill. Every time I went to school, anytime we had some type of report where we had to talk about whatever we wanted to do, or any, what were our dreams and aspirations, wrestling was always the main part of it. Anybody I went to high school out here in Minnesota knew that all he ever talked about was wrestling. All he ever cared about was wrestling, until I actually met a friend in high school in Minnesota that that was mutually like wrestling almost as much as I did. So we started messing around, wrestling on his trampoline at his place and all that. And he had a friend named, and a lot of guys who, in Minnesota know his name, Johnny Ridlin, who was training at Midwest Pro Wrestling. And, he was training there, and he's like, hey, dude, you want to just come and check it out? And I was like, I kind of don't have the money to spend like $2,000 or $3,000 to learn how to wrestle. I don't know. And then he told me that he talked to Sheriff Johnny Emerald, who was running the camp at the time, said that, hey, just come in and check it out, and he'll actually kind of give you like a tryout and see what you know. And then if you come and show, if you do well enough, then he'll say, hey, you can just come and train wherever you want. And pretty much that was the case. I went to the MPW camp. I showed him that like I could run the ropes, I could take bumps, I could do all the basic stuff. Like, everything that's basic that you learn, like, you know, within maybe a year or two, I already knew.
Right.
And I got there, and he said, right at the end of the day, hey, like, you're well trained, you know what you're doing. You can train here whenever you want. You don't have to pay us a dime. And I was like, holy shit. Like, I finally got a chance to run. And then ever since the opportunity, I went twice a week there to go train and work out with guys. And in my third day of training, I got told by Sheriff, hey, you're going to wrestle with Ryan Cruz against the Junk Squad. And I was like, what? Like, this is my third day being here, and you're already throwing me on a show. And my mind was blown completely. And
how old were you at that point? How old were you at this point?
At that point, I was 18. So that's where I considered my wrestling career to legitimately start, is when I started training with MPW. And getting my first chance to wrestle at First Avenue against the Junk Squad, tagging with Ryan Cruz.
Now, when you trained at MPW, Ari Daivari was there around the same time as well, correct?
He came a little bit after, but yeah, pretty much around the same time.
Was Cannon still there at this point, or did Cannon already move on, and was it just kind of Sheriff with Emerald handling kind of the day-to-day stuff at MPW? Because MPW, when you started MPW, when you were 18, it lasted a little bit longer, and then it kind of fluttered out, you know? So I'm just wondering... Was Cannon...
It was probably like a couple years.
Right. So was Cannon there helping with training at that point, or was he kind of already doing his own thing?
I wouldn't say he was specifically there helping with training all the time. He was there it kind of spread it out. Like, he was here, whenever he wanted to show up, he would be there. But then there were I know Ken Anderson, he showed up like once, and then Arya's brother showed up with Arya too, and who else? And Shelton Benjamin, who's friends with a friend of mine, Troy Elmore. He showed up just because he knew Troy, and I got to wrestle around with him for a little bit. But when Cannon came, he showed us. He kind of showed me he told me how to take an arm drag better, because for some reason I used to take an arm drag off my side instead of just flipping over like a regular flip bump. So he suggested I take it one way than the other way I was doing, because I don't know why I learned it the way I did, but I was just kind of flipping off to the side. Like, I didn't know how to take a proper flip bump.
Sure.
But yeah, Cannon showed up probably maybe a handful of times while I was actually legitimately there at PW.
Right. And now, like, you and I could take Travis. Travis went to one wrestling show with me. Actually was part of the show as a manager, just more or less a look on the card. But you and I could take Travis, and in 15 minutes we could teach him how to bump properly. That was one of the easier parts. Running the ropes is maybe a little bit more difficult, whatever. But the ring psychology is the toughest part about wrestling, that anybody can get in their backyard and jump around the trampoline, do flips and whatnot. But to actually understand how to put together a match is what really took me the longest in wrestling. Because when you get in, I got in when I was 16, very young, just like you did. And all I wanted to do was take these big bumps and look really cool in the ring. I didn't know how to structure a match the way I do now. How long do you think it took you to really understand this is how to actually, I'm not going to say choreograph because that's the wrong word, but how long did it take you to sit back and say, I get it. Like, I understand. We're telling a story in the ring. We have 15 minutes to do this. It needs to make sense. Like, for me, it definitely took me several years until it really clicked in my head. And now at an older age, I really understand it a lot more today than I did even 5 years ago. And as I'm probably sure you do as well, but do you know really when it kind of hit you one time that you're like, hey, I think I get this now?
Okay, so when I actually could name the exact situation where I realized how the match was supposed to be formatted, quote unquote formatted.
Sure.
But it was by GA, Genuine Article, Chris Jordan, and he was at the camp one day, and he was telling me how to structure a match. And this is something no one's ever explained to me before. And when he explained that to me, that's when it just pretty much all hit me right there. And I was like, holy crap, the shine, the cutoff, hope spots, comeback, false finishes, and, the finish, like all that. And then I started watching matches totally differently. And after I finally, because before all that, I really had no idea, honestly. I had no idea how to put a match together. All I knew is that, hey, I could do some cool moves here and there. But I had no idea where to put them. I had no idea where to throw, the friggin' split leg frog splash that he used to do, or friggin' a spine buster or a hurricane run. I had no idea where to place them.
Right.
And then when he explained all that to me, then I slowly, as time went on, as I started doing more matches, I started realizing exactly how to put a match together. And I was like, okay, I get it now. And as the years went on, I started realizing, okay, it has to build. Like, it has to be like a staircase.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you can't start off a match with a spine buster and then work your way down. Oh, not spine buster. You can start your match with a pile driver and then work your way down. Like, you have to like build. Everything has to have a story behind it.
Right.
And it can't just be as simple as just going in there, just doing a bunch of crazy moves and then finishing and then you're done.
Yeah, exactly.
Can you feel? This can be for both you guys, I guess. But when you're in a, say, you've got a certain amount of time. Most of your guys' matches, I anticipate on most shows, you're given a time slot and you're given, say, 15 to 20 minutes. Would that be somewhat accurate, that you get an amount of time that you have?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean,
Okay.
for the most part, the promoters will, obviously, they want a certain structure. They want you to put in 8 to 12 or 12 to 15. They know. Does everybody abide by that? No. You can literally ask numerous guys how many people actually abide by it. But, for the most time, we try to. You can kind of lose track of time out there if you're not careful.
Okay, and then so if you're looking at say a 12 to 15 minute match, and like Craven, you just said, you need to build, you need to kind of find that crescendo, find the ending, put it all together so that it all makes sense in the end. Do you ever know when you're in the ring as one of the wrestlers? Do you know when you're putting together something really well, or do you not know until after the 1, 2, 3, and then you reflect on the entire match? Or can you feel it while you're doing it to say, hey, we're doing something really good right now. This is going to be a special match when we finish it? Or is that not a feeling that hits you until it's all over?
Usually, that specific feeling that you're talking about usually doesn't hit me until the fans react. Like, if I won't get any specific feeling until the fans react. Because really, it's all theory. Whenever we're putting a match together, like I'm putting a match together with Renny D and we're wrestling at Pro Wrestling Battleground, and then we're going out there and we set up like, oh, this would be really cool to do. And like, I think the fans would react really well to this. Like, it really doesn't hit me like, how awesome it's going to be until I hear the fans go, oh, I was like, oh, that was awesome. Or just, if it's all silence, then there's really nothing to really reminisce about. But when the moment actually happens and then you're able to just kind of let it sink in, kind of like what, a good wrestler should do. Like when you do a move really well, and then right at that moment, you let that moment breathe. You let the fans accept what's all happening, and you let the other guy sell, and then you just take that moment to get your heat or to, just get the people behind you, whatever the case. Then those moments right there is when you really have time to reflect and think, all right, this is fucking awesome.
Yeah.
So it's stuff like that.
I would agree 100%. I mean, there's been times in the match where obviously it's all based on crowd reaction, at least in my book too. If you do something and the crowd reacts the way that you want them to react and anticipate their reaction, it makes it so much easier. And in my standpoint, I always said, I know I'm having a really good match when I don't feel like I'm breathing heavy. You're so excited and everything's going good. A match that I had with you, Craven, actually, and it wasn't a huge crowd, but it was actually one of the bigger crowds at that time for Pro Wrestling Battleground. We had a really good match structured, and there was a spot in the match where I believe you hit the superplex on me. And when we were laying there, I knew this is everything that so far that I envisioned. The finish went great. We got the reaction from the crowd, and we knew we had a good match. But you do feel it when you're out there. Obviously, it's the last thing the finish is the most important part of the match. If the crowd remembers the finish, you did a good job, and you're supposed to have that ultimate pop at the end. But obviously, there's periods within that match that you want to get reaction from the crowd. And if you're good like Craven is, it happens more times than not. So, and it's a cool feeling to have because it makes it so much easier, and it's really gratifying for us as wrestlers to understand, hey, we're doing something right. Craven, I do want to get into your recent WWE trial at the Performance Center, but before we do that, obviously you've been through a ton in wrestling so far. You've been in the business, I guess, if you started when you were 14 and you're 28 now, right? Is that about right?
Yeah.
Yes.
28.
14 years of wrestling and officially, 16 if it, 12 years or whatever it might be. And you...
I consider my career to span about, a little less than 10 just because, I don't count those years, but I get it.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And what is outside of your WWE realm and the times that you got invited down to the different shows and to be part of an extra in the actual Performance Center, what's been your highlight in the 10 years of pro wrestling thus far?
My highlight, I have to say, really going down to the Performance Center and getting that opportunity to do that because, that was kind kind of like a year coming, like, you know, because like literally it was a year, because I got to go at the beginning of September.
Right.
And it was the September the year before where I actually went with you and Arya and that, you know, one other kid that was there. And that was when I was told that I was going to be, you know, that we're going to bring you down. And then I just, you know, of course I had to kind of keep it hush-hush and all that. But, you know, as some people may know, like tryouts are pretty much quarterly. So every 3 months they have tryouts. And so he said, oh, we'll put you on the list for December. You know, November comes, I email and I say, oh, that list is full. I'm like, okay, and then I keep emailing, and then I'm waiting for the one in March, and you say, oh, no, that one's been full. And I was like, all right. And I'm emailing again, waiting for the one in June, and it turns out, like, oh, no, that one's full, too. It's like, crap. So I was pretty much in a headspace where, like, you know, I was still doing extra talent opportunities where I was just kind of really bitter, and I was like, crap, like, I had pretty much had it taken out from under me, this opportunity to go down to Orlando, and I can't, and it's completely out of my control. I can't go. And then I finally get the official invite, whereas, like, you know, where the receptionist sends me the email and says, you know, you're on the potential list to be invited. So it was an official invite, but it was more than what I've gotten before.
Right.
And then I get the official invite saying that we would like to, you know, to invite you down to Orlando to do a tryout, and then they list out everything, all the specifics that you need to know before you go down there. And then that's when I was like, because anyone who knows me in real life, my real work is I'm a personal trainer. Right. And my job revolves around helping, like, you know, kind of putting all my attention into other people. So at this moment, I kind of glance at my phone and I see I get a email from the person from WWE, and I'm like, holy crap, I can't look at it. and then I did just happen to look at it while the client went to go get a drink of water, and I'm like, oh my God, it's finally happening. Like, I'm finally going down. So pretty much it was a year.
That was your best day of work. That was your best day of work ever.
Yeah. And then I finally get done, and the first person I tell is my girlfriend. I text my best friend, and I told him, and I was just, like, so excited. But, of course, like, it's just one of those things that not a lot of people really want to, like, you're not going to blast on Twitter or on Facebook and tell the whole world, hey, I got this opportunity, because you don't know if something like that's going to bite you back in the ass or anything like that. So only people that I knew that had no affiliation with wrestling is really, like, pretty much told. And because I didn't really want anything to really come back to bite me. But, yeah, I have to say that moment that I got to just be able to go to the Performance Center, that's probably the highlight. Because anytime I get closer and closer to my dream, that's pretty much the highlight of my wrestling career.
Yeah, I don't blame you. And now, for those of you who might not know who Craven is, the dude's built. I mean, he is a stacked-up guy. I got a picture of him on our website. What does your normal weekly workout regime look like as far as your routine? Are you in the gym? Obviously, you're a personal trainer, so you're in the gym, basically on a daily basis helping others, but how often do you actually train your body? Is it 4 days a week, 5 days a week?
Okay, so it varies. It varies. Like, I change it up all the time. So I used to, like, when I first started training about, 10 years ago, it went from, 3, maybe 4 days a week if I had the energy to do it. And then as years went on, as I started, kind of developing a relationship with the gym. Right. Because I used to go to the gym and just look at it as, I have to go to the gym because I got to get big for wrestling. And I felt a lot of dread behind it. Because, naturally, anyone who's just getting in the habit of going to the gym or wants to get in the habit of going to the gym, naturally, it's not a good feeling to try and get up, okay, I'm going to go to the gym and work out. Nobody really wants to do that. But
Craven, anybody listening to The Pencil, the best relationship they have in their lives is with the gym.
Yeah. And so as time went on, I learned to really appreciate it, and then I started to learn more, and then I started to watch more videos, get some ideas, get some advice, whether it be from the internet, from YouTube, from people that I know, and then I eventually started just growing in knowledge, just like the same way I grow in wrestling is learning how to tell a story in the ring or how to do something different in the ring. I learned the same way as far as working out in the gym. So my day, probably for the last couple of years, my days are probably I was probably going at most 4 days a week, maybe 5 if I was feeling really ballsy. But ever since I got the tryout opportunity, I changed it to 6 days a week.
Okay.
So really my workout routine now is I still keep it that way. I'm still training as if I'm going in for a tryout, like, next weekend or next month or whatever the case. And so I train 6 days a week. And my workout routine now is on Sundays, cardio with some deadlifts, because I can't go a workout without lifting some type of weight.
Right.
So mainly my cardio actually is very similar to the training that they do at the Performance Center, which I was kind of, besides the in-ring stuff, like the circuit training that they do is very similar to what I do, except they do it a whole lot more, and because of course they have the equipment to do it. But the circuit training that they do is very similar to what I put clients through. And I was like, holy shit. Like, I feel like I should be the most prepared person here, which when I was down there, I kind of felt like that was the case. But yeah, like I'll start off on like a stair stepper, and then I'll go do some deadlifts, and then I'll do a lot of circuit training with some box jumps, some burpees, and just a lot of high intensity cardio stuff to really build my endurance, because like any wrestler will tell you, there is no cardio machine that will teach you how to like have or to maintain yourself in the ring. Like no amount of time on a treadmill is going to keep your energy up in the ring or whatever the case.
Yeah, I guarantee you could train for a marathon. You could literally train for a marathon. You could get in a ring, do a 10-minute match, and be blown up and be tired. It's just your in-ring cardio is completely different than anything you can do outside of it. So I'm 100% with you there.
Yeah, so really that is the case. But I feel like the best route to go is circuit training, high-intensity cardio, where you're doing more full-body stuff, because that's the stuff that kind of, like, because I don't really get that blown up, like, in a match, really, unless I'm doing something that really takes the wind out of me, but that's because of all the circuit training I do. Like, some guys know me as, like, Mr. Cardio. Like, when I was down at the Performance Center, people call me Mr. All Day because I wouldn't stop. And, so yeah, it's like I take pride in all the cardio stuff that I do. I was doing it like probably like an 8-minute cardio session by myself, like, just pretty much in one little spot, whether it be with box jumps or burpees or mountain climbers or whatever the case. I was doing something different. But yeah, that's my cardio day, and I do a cardio day on the first day and a cardio day on the 6th day. And my rest day is actually a day I usually have a show. Okay. And so technically it's rest day.
Right.
So, but in the middle of the week, those 4 days in the middle, I'm lifting. So I got chest day on Monday, and then I got back and shoulders on Tuesday, and I have legs on Wednesday, and then I have arms with a little bit of trap specific exercises on Thursday, and then the cardio day and the next day where I'm doing deadlifts. I'm trying to add some more Olympic lifting into my workouts. I'm just trying to get the flexibility for some of the movements, but that's pretty much what my routine is 2 cardio days and weightlifting right in the middle.
When you're doing a lot of that stuff, Craven, are you doing it a lot is it week to week, depending on if you're doing it heavy and doing it for strength, or if you're doing it for mobility, or if you're trying to stay flexible, or kind of all that kind of stuff change every couple of weeks, or do you tend to do the same thing the majority of the time?
Anyone that knows me in the gym knows that I never really do the same thing every week. Like, I'm always doing a different workout. Like, whether it's something I see that's on YouTube, I will kind of take an idea and I'll kind of make it my own. Kind of like how a wrestler will take a wrestling move, like, okay, he did a spine buster, he did a DDT. What can I do to make that mine or make it different? And that's, kind of the same way I do with my wrestling moves. I do it with working out. So I'll just kind of mold different workouts and just kind of, throw them in there. Whether I'm doing like, okay, this week I'm going to do like 4 sets and just go for like 6 to 8 reps. And then this week I'm going to go a little bit lighter and just, go until failure with everything. Or I'll do like a big circuit specifically for my chest or for my back, for my legs. So every week is always different. So I'm always tricking my body, which is mainly why like guys will see me like week to week or every other month or whatever the case and say, hey, you're looking bigger. Because I get like, not to blow, not to toot my own horn or anything like that, but I hear that all the time, that you're looking good and that you're getting a lot bigger and all that. And it was nice to go from being one of the little guys to finally being one of the bigger guys.
Right.
There you go. And versatility, listeners. Versatility. Keep it versatile in the gym. You can look like Craven Knyte. For me.
Yeah.
And here's the thing. The reason why I asked what your workout regime was because I've heard from Aria that the workout that they put you through down at the Performance Center is something like you've never been through before. But obviously you've been doing circuit training and stuff. But reading your Twitter and everything about when you were coming back home from it, it sounds like it still took quite a bit out of you. How actually difficult was the training down at the Performance Center when you were there?
So the difficult part, because it definitely is brutal. Like, I got nothing bad to say about the Performance Center. And true honesty is that place is amazing. But it was brutal. Like, there was guys that like don't really train specifically for that, but they did train their hardest for the 5 weeks coming up, and there were still guys just throwing up or like had to be, set aside, people cramping up, whatever the case. I cramped up in my calf, but I was still trying to go, but they told me not to keep going, just to kind of let the physician, work it out and all that. And but yeah, like the way it was brutal for me was the consistent in-ring like training, because as some wrestlers know, like you don't really have access to a wrestling ring throughout the week. Like you really only have the time before a show. Like if you're lucky enough to wrestle maybe 3 days a week, you only really have the time before a show to really train. Or if you're in some cases only wrestling once a week, you only have that little bit of time to get in the ring, hit the ropes, maybe take a few bumps and do a few rolls. But at the Performance Center, when you're doing like rolling drills or bumping drills and just hitting the ropes, and some drills they have 4 guys hitting the ropes at the exact same time, and when you're one of the like smaller guys and you have like 3 other really big guys hitting the ropes at the exact same time you are, like it's either like hitting a brick wall or getting slingshot to the middle of the ring.
Right.
So stuff like that really takes a toll on you, and you're not only doing it in one ring, you're doing it in that center ring, and then you're running to the next ring, and then you're running to a third ring, doing the same drills, getting back in line, and then doing different drills back and forth. And this is going on for maybe 3 hours straight, hour and a half to 2 hour break, to another 2, maybe 3 hours, like again, of doing this. I'm not used to that consistent type of training in the ring. As far as the circuit training with the weights in the weight room that they show you on YouTube with the tour that they did for WWE, that stuff I was fine with, because that stuff I was able to really push myself to do. But as far as the in-ring stuff, that's where it really took a toll on me, because I don't take that many bumps like consecutively within like a 7-hour period.
Don't kid yourself, people. Craven doesn't take bumps for anybody. That's why it hurt. I'm just joking, actually. But no, actually, yeah, I heard it's brutal when it comes to that, and obviously you're in tip-top condition and shape when it comes to the weight room stuff. But it's awesome that you finally got the opportunity to go down to Orlando. And I don't know if you can speak to it or not, but have you heard anything back from WWE since the actual tryout?
I've heard nothing yet.
Nothing yet. Okay. And did they give you a time frame when they thought they would get back to you, or they say just kind of like, hey, keep your head up, we'll get back to you when we get back to you type thing, or did they not really give you any direction moving forward?
They let you know beforehand that like it'll be a couple months before you hear anything.
Okay. Well, I mean, obviously, I wish you nothing but the best, because I've said since the day we started the show that if there's 2 people that I've ever met in wrestling that deserve a contract, it's you and Arya. And what I wanted to touch on too before we wrap this up is the way that you carry yourself outside the ring, because obviously a man in your position, as far as that you're good, you're a very good wrestler. 2 things. First off, first thing, the one thing is you do stick to Minnesota a lot when it comes to wrestling, because Minnesota is very heavy when it comes to indie wrestling. Not saying it's all good, but you still get paid. Have you thought about venturing outside Minnesota, like trying to do Ring of Honor, or trying to maybe do like Chicago or California? Now, I know it costs a lot of money nowadays, and the money isn't in indie wrestling as it used to be, and you can still work every weekend in Minnesota. But do you feel trapped in Minnesota by any means? Are you looking to expand outside of it, or are you okay with working in Minnesota, still working on a weekly basis while limiting basically what you have to pay out to go places?
Pretty much like whether I feel trapped or not is kind of a yes and no answer, because I kind of feel trapped and I kind of don't. The only reason why I feel trapped is just because like I can't, as much as I wish I was able to just go out to just any show and just try and say, hey, like I'm a worker, I have my gear with me. If you have a spot open, I'll be happy to be a part of it. And just kind of jump my way, just kind of jump into any promotion, whatever. And when it comes to traveling, I kind of don't have the resources. I don't have the luxury, like really like knowing people or being able to just travel to shows. Like I put enough damage on my car that it's hard for me to really. I always have to carpool to get to like shows that are more than 45 minutes away. Because like my own car, like I'm just worried about like, you know, my gym's literally like across the street from me, but I still drive, and I feel like I may get stranded at my job and have to walk back home. Like that's usually the case with me. So when it comes to traveling, like I'm just always like I want to do it so bad, but the opportunity just doesn't really present itself much other than just going to like a small town that just happens to be an hour and a half to 2 hours away of Minnesota, or maybe the North Dakota, South Dakota, or Wisconsin or Iowa, whichever the case. So I want to venture out like really bad. It's just like, and I guess a couple of promoters have like, you know, reached out and said, hey, I want to bring you down for this show and all that. And it's like, well, okay, like just fly me down or just give me the money to be able to go down there or just kind of set it up. And then the time comes and I hear nothing. Yeah. And it's like it's happened a couple of times. So it's like it's sometimes the case where it's a promoter or it's a person on the other end that's not doing their part.
Yeah, it's a shady business. I'm more than
happy to say yes to doing. Yeah. And I got a chance to like wrestle in New York like legitimately for the first time since like, you know, because when I wrestled in New York, I never had a legit show, a legit match. Like I did have like a legit match in a ring, but like because it was for public access, but I can't say if I know where the footage is or anything like that. But I never really had a legit shot to wrestle in New York. And this past, I believe it was this past spring, I got to go to New York and got to wrestle my best friend, who like Blade Michaels, who I had, you know, fly down here and do a couple shows for Battleground or for AWS, and I got to wrestle him in a match, which was really fun because it was like a nice big show at a casino, and to have that be like my first opportunity to wrestle like not only just really far out of Minnesota, but just, you know, wrestle pretty much in my hometown in New York and stuff, and kind of play off as like either neutral or just a asshole heel and say, I'm now residing from Minneapolis, Minnesota. I never had the chance to really do that, whereas like I'm from New York, but I'm residing from Minneapolis, Minnesota because New York is quote unquote garbage or whatever. Right. But I don't really feel that way, but like it's, you know, that's how I got to play it.
Yeah, and the thing is too, as far as anybody who's a big wrestling fan, you might have watched like the Punk DVD when he talks about him and Cabana having to drive to Philly. Like those days don't really happen anymore. And I know they were that when I broke in too, you know, where everybody was driving places. But with YouTube and social media, you can really spread out your talents to the world rather quickly than having to drive to a town, which is good and bad. Obviously, we'd all like to work with other talents from other places, but to be honest, and I've said this since day one, Minnesota really has, I think, some of the best wrestlers in the entire states. And obviously, you know, personal opinion when it comes to Minnesota, when I was there, I really thought that you, Arya, and myself were the three best workers in Minnesota. It's a strong. It is. It depends what you're looking for, though, in wrestling. And Minnesota has a little bit of everything for you. And the last thing I have for you, Craven, is outside the ring, you could be a dick to anybody you want to if you really want to, because you are a good worker. You don't have to take the time to talk to a fan, to sign an autograph. I know guys in Minnesota who are very good at wrestling, very good workers, but they're not very friendly to the fans. And it was always something. And some of these guys, I mean, obviously they're good friends of mine, but I couldn't do that because they're the ones paying money and allowing us to do this. And you and me would always go out and interact with the fans and mingle with them. Why do you choose to do that when you know you could just pack your bags after a long match, after a long show, and all you want to do is get home and shower? Why do you still take the time to actually have a conversation with a fan that shows up to a show?
Well, it's kind of like what I talked about earlier, how like when I used to wrestle in New York and wrestle in the parks, I love to entertain people, but like to be able to just like wrestle in the middle of the park and then just walk away, like that would just be kind of silly. Like it would be kind of interesting to be like, why do you just like why they do what they do and then just walk away? But and like those people that were there just happen to watch is like, you guys are really like fun to watch and stuff, and be able to like talk to those people, like it'd be kind of fun. But in a way, it's kind of like when I see fans and I talk to fans and they tell me how much they think, I'm a good wrestler, or they really like me, whatever the case may be. Like I always see, me as a fan, whether the fan just happens to be like 20 years older than me, or the fan happens to be like a little 5-year-old kid, just, admiring this, everything that I did in the ring, or just being really entertained by me, whatever the case may be. I always see a little bit of me, and I always think if I was, if I always like to treat people how I want to be treated.
Right.
And I see a fan that really wants my attention, really wants my autograph. I'm not going to just nudge and violate. I'm probably one of those people that if I ever were to make it big in main event WrestleMania, and a bunch of fans happen to see me and want my autograph, I'm pretty sure I would take the time out to sign every single autograph, take pictures and hug people and all that, because it's not to feed my own ego. It's just because I can appreciate anybody who can appreciate the stuff that I do, that I love to do.
Right.
If anyone takes the time out to watch wrestling and give as much of their heart and soul and passion to watch all the effort and all the hard stuff that we put ourselves through, and they appreciate it, then I appreciate them for that.
Yeah, I mean, we owe it to them. Obviously, without them, there'd be no wrestling, and without them, we wouldn't know if we had a good match or not. And they just do so much for us, and they maybe don't realize it. Like, they're there paying to see us, but in reality, if it wasn't for them, we wouldn't be doing what we do, because we wouldn't be able to love it as much as we do, I don't think. So,
Hell yeah.
I guess, Travis, do you have any questions for Craven at all anymore, or moving forward?
Bring it on.
Yeah, man.
You're the man, Craven. You're the man, Craven. The only question I had was regarding, you already answered some of it about your stuff in Minnesota, because I've seen a handful of your matches. I've seen you in the Target Center. I've seen you in armories. I've seen you in gymnasiums. I mean, the biggest question I had was, is Renny D just shitty, or is he actually as good as he says he is? Because if you listen to this show every week, you'd think Renny D is going to be WrestleMania main event next year. But I want to hear from a guy that's been in the ring with him. What's Ryan's biggest strength, and what's his biggest weakness?
Oh, boy. I'm actually looking forward to this one.
His biggest strength, I'm pretty sure he can probably talk his way out of any situation. He can get along with probably anybody in any locker room, anywhere. And as far as his in-ring ability, he can pretty much back up the words that he says, because he's a great promo guy. He's very he shows it even on the podcast when he's talking on the podcast. You hear it, this guy, he can talk. And
if the pencil was in your hands, Craven Knyte, would Renny D be a main event heel or a main event face in the WWE?
I'll keep him in the dark matches for sure. I can't have him out.
I got you.
Yeah, I agree 100%. That is 100% true. I would keep myself in the dark match as well.
Those are all my questions.
Yeah, man. No, Craven, let's do this again, man, sometime. This is good, and I'm sure we have a bunch more we want to talk about. We really hit the strong points, but, man, we could sit and have a conversation for a long time. So let's plan on doing this again sometime in the future. Yeah. And obviously, I had a great time talking with you and catching up with you. It's been a while. But by all means, man, anytime you can make the show, I'd love to have you come back on. We can shoot this shit for another 40 minutes or do whatever.
Hell yeah, man. I love it. Anybody who's close to me, anybody who knows me, whether I kind of put it in short on Twitter yesterday, but whether I'm driving to the store, I'm working out in the gym, I'm taking a shower, if I'm just walking around, sometimes if I'm working with a client, all I do is listen to podcasts. My life revolves around podcasts.
Yeah, man.
So, I don't listen to music much. You look at my recently played on my iPod, you'll see that there's no music on there. It's just nothing but podcasts. So, I love this stuff. I love to be a part of it. And I really appreciative that you got to have me on the show today.
Yeah, absolutely. Again,
you're the man, Craven.
For guys listening, if you want to catch up and basically keep up with Craven Knyte, Craven, you're on Twitter. Is it at Craven Knyte? Is that the Twitter handle?
Yep, at Craven Knyte. Craven with a C. Knight spelled Knyte.
Yeah, and that is on our website too, pencilpodcast.com. His Twitter handle's on there. And Craven, when's your next show? I'm assuming it's probably coming up this weekend. Or is it this weekend? You have a show coming up?
It's this weekend with American Wrestling Federation.
All right, where are you going to be at for that?
To be honest, I can't remember.
They run a lot of shows.
True, honestly, AWF is always in different locations. I usually don't check until about the middle of the week. Wednesday's tomorrow, so I'll probably check tomorrow.
All right, that works. He's Craven Knyte, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Renny D. This is Travis Mester. This is The Pencil. Craven, thank you for coming on. We'll get you on the show again soon. Good luck. Best of luck with everything, and I hope you hear something soon, man.
Thank you, buddy. Appreciate it.
All right, thank you.
Good night, everybody.
On October 14th, The Pencil officially goes pink in honor of Breast Cancer Awareness Month. for every listen to our October 14th podcast between the 14th and the 21st, we will donate 10 cents per listen up to $500. Do us a favor and make sure that you listen to the podcast, share with your friends and family, and let's reach 5,000 listeners so we can donate $500 to breast cancer research. With your help, together, we can pin breast cancer to the mat for the 3 count. Make sure you listen to the podcast on iTunes, YouTube, PodBean, or Stitcher. Follow us at Twitter at Pencil Podcast, or visit our website at www.pencilpodcast.com. You've been listening to The Pencil, the professional wrestling podcast online. Follow us on Twitter at Pencil Podcast, or check us out online at pencilpodcast.com. You can listen to our show every Tuesday on iTunes, PodBean, Stitcher, and YouTube. Our show features guests from the WWE, TNA, the independent wrestling scene, and legends of wrestling past. Check it out today.